Imagine this. You're thrown into a pit, abandoned by the very people you thought you could trust. As you scream for help, all you hear is laughter fading into the distance. You're alone, in the dark, wondering, why me? This isn't just a story, it's the reality Joseph faced, and it was only the beginning of his trials. Dragged out of the pit, Joseph's relief is short-lived. Instead of freedom, he's shackled, sold as a slave to strangers. The warmth of his homeland is replaced by the scorching desert, the familiar faces of his brothers, now a haunting memory. But why? What could drive someone's own family to betray him in such a cruel way? As Joseph arrives in Egypt, he's stripped of everything, his home, his freedom, his dignity, yet somehow he refuses to be consumed by anger. He works diligently as a servant in Potiphar's house, earning trust and respect. But just when it seems things are looking up, a false accusation shatters his fragile stability, landing him in prison, betrayed again, forgotten, alone. How could anyone survive such a chain of betrayals without their heart hardening into bitterness? How could Joseph still believe in hope, in purpose, in God? And yet, what happens next in Joseph's story defies logic, revealing the true power of forgiveness in a way that no one, least of all his brothers, could have ever expected. Years pass. Joseph, now a prisoner, might seem forgotten by the world, but something remarkable is happening behind the scenes. In the dark, cold cells of the Egyptian prison, Joseph doesn't succumb to despair. Instead, he chooses faith. Even in captivity, his integrity and wisdom shine. Fellow prisoners come to him, drawn by something they can't quite explain. It's here, in the depths of the dungeon, that Joseph's extraordinary gift begins to surface. A gift that will change everything. One day, two prisoners approach him with troubling dreams. Joseph listens intently, and with God's help, he interprets their visions perfectly. One of them, the Pharaoh's cupbearer, is released, just as Joseph foretold. "Remember me," Joseph pleads, hoping this might be his chance to escape the endless shadow of betrayal. But once again, Joseph is forgotten. Days turn into months, and months into years. The silence must have been deafening, yet Joseph waits, his faith unshaken. Then the moment arrives. Pharaoh himself is plagued by dreams that no one can interpret. The cupbearer, struck by sudden memory, speaks of Joseph, a forgotten prisoner with a divine gift. In a dramatic turn of events, Joseph is rushed from the dungeon to the palace. From rags to royalty, he stands before the most powerful man in the world. With God's guidance, he reveals the meaning of Pharaoh's dreams, 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh, awed by Joseph's wisdom, places him in charge of all Egypt, second only to himself. It's a rise so unlikely, so dramatic, that it almost feels like the ending of a story. But Joseph's journey is far from over. As the years of famine descend, Joseph's leadership saves countless lives. Egypt becomes a refuge for the desperate, the hungry, the broken. But then, one day, familiar faces appear before him, faces he never thought he'd see again. His brothers, the very ones who betrayed him, now stand before him, unknowingly pleading for the mercy of the brother they left for dead. The question looms, what will Joseph do? How will he respond to the ones who stole his life, his freedom, his dreams? This is the moment where forgiveness is tested in its purest form. Joseph's heart pounds as he looks into their faces. The men who once laughed as they sold him into slavery now stand before him, unaware of his identity. Years have passed, but the wounds of betrayal remain fresh. He could expose them, punish them, make them feel the pain he endured. Yet instead of vengeance, Joseph does something unexpected. He hides his identity and begins to test their character. Through a series of clever tests, Joseph observes how his brothers treat each other. He watches as they wrestle with guilt over their past actions. He listens as they confess their regret, not knowing he understands their every word. Slowly, Joseph begins to see something he thought impossible. His brothers have changed. The selfish men who once discarded him are now filled with remorse. But is it enough for forgiveness? The moment of truth arrives when Joseph places his youngest brother Benjamin in a precarious position. Judah, the very brother who once suggested selling Joseph, steps forward and offers himself as a substitute. "Take me instead," Judah pleads. It's a selfless act that leaves Joseph shaken. For the first time, he sees the redemption of his brothers, and it brings him to tears. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, Joseph clears the room. His brothers, confused and fearful, watch as he reveals the truth. "I am Joseph, the one you sold into slavery." Silence falls, their faces pale. They're certain that this is the end, that Joseph, now a man of immense power, will exact revenge. But Joseph's next words change everything. "Do not be afraid," Joseph says, his voice trembling with emotion. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." His brothers, still stunned, fall to their knees. Tears flow freely as Joseph embraces them, not with anger but with love. He has every reason to hold on to bitterness, yet he chooses grace. It's a moment so powerful, so unexpected, that it leaves everyone speechless. This is the power of forgiveness. Joseph doesn't ignore the pain or pretend it didn't happen. He acknowledges the betrayal, but he refuses to let it define him. Instead, he sees God's hand in every moment, the pit, the prison, the palace, and recognizes how it all led to this act of reconciliation. By forgiving his brothers, Joseph not only frees them, but also frees himself. His story reminds us that forgiveness isn't just for the one who wronged us. It's a gift we give ourselves, a way to let go of the chains of anger and resentment. Joseph's story is more than a tale of betrayal and power. It's a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness. Through his faith and trust in God, he turned unimaginable pain into a legacy of grace and redemption. His choice to forgive didn't just restore his family, it saved nations. Imagine what forgiveness could do in your own life. Who do you need to forgive? What burden could you release today? Joseph's journey reminds us that even in our darkest moments, God is at work, weaving our pain into something beautiful. And just like Joseph, we're called to trust him, to forgive, and to let his grace work through us. If this story has touched your heart, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. And don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Bible Stories for more messages of hope, faith, and transformation.